I know that there are some people out there that have decided to do some looting, property destruction, and all this other mumbo jumbo, all because they're not happy with the election results, as if that is going to change the results, or, you know, well, anyways, I'm not going to even say in this video who I voted for, okay? Well, actually, first of all, let me explain this. We are not a democracy, we are a republic. Granted, yes, we vote in elections, but if you understand the difference between the two terms, you already know that democracy means rule by majority. But there is a downfall to democracy, which is why our founding fathers never intended for us to be a democracy, and that downfall is that a majority can trample on the rights of a minority in a true democracy. Okay? Whereas a republic protects everybody, majority and minority. Let me give you an example. Somebody is accused of committing a murder, right? Now, in a democracy, in a town of, let's say, 100 people, and the accused murderer is one of them, the town votes 99 to 1 to hang him to death. No trial, nothing. Because 99 people believe he did it. And he hasn't even been given a chance to defend himself. He's the only one voting against his hanging. Voila! Noose around his neck, dead. No trial, nothing. Now, in a republic, someone is accused of murder in a town of 100. Now, a majority in the town probably believes he's guilty. But the sheriff comes in and says, wait a minute. You cannot hang him to death without a trial, so I will arrest him. And he has a right to a fair trial. Now, he can either confess and plead guilty, or he can plead not guilty and proceed to trial with a 12-person jury. And in a republic, all 12 members of the jury have to agree that the person is guilty in order to even dare deprive the person of liberty and or life. All 12 have to agree that he's guilty. But if even one measly juror believes in his innocence, then you have to set the guy free. Even if the rest think he's guilty. Because one juror alone has the right to fight for that person's life if they honestly believe that person's innocent after all. Okay? Now, this brings me back to the election thing. Now, truth be told, we do not actually vote for the president. No, really, we don't. I know oftentimes a lot of us will say we voted for this person or that person, and believe me, I will admit, I'm guilty of having said this myself. But no, the truth is, we don't actually vote for the president. We vote for the electors. And the electors are the ones who actually really do vote for the president. And I'll explain a bit how the elector thing works. Now, usually it's only a Republican or a Democrat that picks up electoral votes. Only once in a while have you ever really seen a third party candidate, pick up electoral votes. Okay? Now, I can explain from the standpoint how it works, at least on the Republican and Democratic sides of the selection of electors. Both parties have their state conventions. Okay? And each convention, they're like divided up by congressional district caucuses for the first phase. The next phase is the whole floor, but what happens is there's delegates for delegation, and they cast their votes based on what their congressional district is. Now, when delegates caucus with their districts, and I've gotten actually partake in such a thing myself. I even once ran for presidential elector in 2008. I didn't win, although the guy that did end up with the elector slot actually is a pretty cool guy and all that. Who happens to host I don't know he did before host a nonpartisan radio show. I think he might still host it. I'll have to check into it. But I mean, he's a really nice guy. He was a really cool guy, and I was happy for him to have, won, and at least I can say I ran for it. But now how it works is that each congressional district caucus for both the Republican and Democratic parties get to select an elector. And anybody who's part of the delegation can run for elector. And after the votes are cast, the one who gets the highest amount is that district's elector. Because the thing of it is, the electors are based on how many senators and congressmen. And while we know each state has 2 senators, so basically what happens is, after each congressional caucus has an election for elector, when the whole thing goes before a convention floor in which people vote on nominations for certain statewide offices like university boards and stuff like that, they also vote on something where they have a list of names of who won per each district for elector. And then there'll be a couple of names for at-large electors. The at-large electors being representative of the fact that we have 2 senators. So yeah, each congressional district for both major parties elects their own elector, and then when it goes to state convention floor, those names are on the list along with 2 at-large, and a vote is cast. And if there's no challenges, then it'll be a voice vote rather than paper ballot. Because I remember I myself having done a voice vote of aye along with a whole bunch of other people on convention floor regarding the approval of who was selected to be elector. And we voted on that before we voted on other types of candidates, like the statewide candidates and all that. So, both parties in every state elect their own set of electors. And that's who you really vote for in the presidential election. So both parties already have their own set of electors before Election Day. Now, once it's all over with, well, here's the thing. The winning electors, they get to go to the city that is capital of their state to meet and vote on candidate. And most of the time, they go along with their party's nominee. For example, even though the news already reported that Donald Trump has more electoral votes than Hillary Clinton, the fact of the matter is that the electors, yeah, they'll be casting their votes in their state capitals. Probably not directly in the Capitol building itself, but at least in the cities that are capital of their respective states. And the ones that went to the Republican electors, I know those are likely to definitely be voting for Donald Trump, and then the ones that went to the Democratic electors, those are likely to be voting for Hillary Clinton. Regardless of what the outcome is going to end up being in the end, or what's the obvious outcome. The electors usually go towards whoever their nominee is. Only maybe once in a while might you see one or two or something like that going in a different direction. Good example, 1976, one of the states that went to Republican electors, most electors in that state, yes, they ended up voting for Gerald Ford, the Republican nominee. But one elector in that state actually voted for Ronald Reagan instead of Gerald Ford for president. 1988, West Virginia went to the Democratic electors, and one of them, well, that year, the presidential candidate was Michael Dukakis on the Democratic side, and Democratic vice presidential candidate was Lloyd Bentsen. But this one elector, she switched the names around and voted for vice presidential candidate Lloyd Bentsen for president and presidential candidate Michael Dukakis for vice president. Even though she probably knew that that didn't mean that Lloyd would become president and Michael would become vice president. She probably might have been just symbolic or something. 2000, the Democratic electors of Washington, D.C. were the winners. In which, of course, it's 3 electors because it's of the fact that D.C.'s not a state, it's a district, but because they get to partake in the presidential elections, their electors are based on if they were a state. And only 2 out of 3 of D.C.'s electors had actually ended up voting for Al Gore for president, but one decided to leave the ballot blank. So even though the media had reported Gore having gotten 267 electoral votes, really he got 266 since one that the media previously listed as going to him was a blank ballot with a vote for nobody for president. That, I think it might have been a protest vote or something. But, anyways, some people are like, griping about the electoral system, but there is a good and logical reason it was put in place in the first place. Before it was set up, there was arguments and debates about how the President of the United States would be elected. In fact, in most countries that have a president, there really is no popular vote for president. In fact, in a lot of countries that have a president, not only is there no popular vote, but in a lot of countries with a president, the president ends up getting elected by legislative bodies, which in a lot of countries it's parliaments. Like Israel's parliament, called the Knesset, actually elects the president of Israel. But in a lot of those countries, the person holding the position of president has very little power and is more of a figurehead, because in a lot of those countries they also have a prime minister, and the prime minister and cabinet make a lot of the executive decisions that the President of the United States makes here in the United States. But no, seriously, there was debate on how the president would be elected. One debate was to go for a popular vote. But a lot of our founding fathers, they knew that was a dangerous idea, because, truth be told, if we really had that, then our 4 largest states would be having a say over the rest of the country on who is president. And truth be told, that's actually a dangerous thing. The other was to have Congress elect the president. But a lot of our founding fathers, they objected to that too. Why? Because they wanted the President of the United States to be independent of the legislature. But if the legislature were to elect the president, he would not be considered independent of the legislature. And our founding fathers wanted him to be independent of the legislature and wanted him to be, the chief guardian of this country. Okay? So the electoral system was put in as a compromise in which the voters really would get a say, but also, not only would the voters have somewhat of a say, because the voters would be the ones electing the electors, but every state, big population and small population, would all get a say. For example, when you see the results, some of the states that went to Trump definitely had big populations, and some had small populations. Same thing with some of the states that went to Hillary. Some had big population, and some had small population. But either way, every single state in this country all got to have a say. Okay? But here's something else to think about too. Of all those people out there that are causing property destruction and acting so upset and like property destruction is going to, change anything, let me tell you this. We had so many options on the ballot for presidential electors. Not just Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, but also Gary Johnson, Jill Stein. And there were some other options too, especially considering there are some third-party candidates that are on the ballot only in a few states, meaning that it's very likely said candidate is probably not going to win, but at least some votes are pulled in, because there are some people that choose to vote for the electors of this or that third-party candidate because of symbolism and wanting to make a point, wanting to send out a message. And quite frankly, you know, who can not have any respect for wanting to send out a message? Okay. Now compare this to a country called North Korea, known as the Hermit Kingdom. Because, let's face it, North Korea does not have much contact with the outside world. And the North Koreans are often told that the United States of America started the Korean War. Oh, they're also told that North Korea is the true Korea, and that the United States stole South Korea from the true Korea. When the actual history is that the United Nations actually divided the Korean Peninsula into two zones of occupation, putting the southern part under U.S. rule and the northern part under Soviet rule. And of course, you know, created two different Korea countries, north being Democratic People's Republic of Korea and south being Republic of Korea. And of course, the North Korean people are also told that, yeah, USA started the North Korean War, but if you find KGB documents admit that Joseph Stalin gave his blessing to Kim Il-sung to invade South Korea. And that was how the Korean War really started. It's admitted in the KGB archives that USA never started the Korean War. Okay? Now, about North Korea. They have elections. Yes, they do. But what makes theirs different from ours is that there's only one name on ballots. Sure, they have a legislature like we do, but only one name on the ballot for this or that legislative candidate. Sure, they have a blank spot where you can thus make known that you don't want to vote for the name that's on the ballot and you want to write a different name in. But according to a lot of North Korean defectors, most North Koreans don't even dare write in another name, not even if they don't like the candidate on the ballot, because of fear of retribution. And, well, Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader, he actually is himself a representative in North Korea's legislature. Yeah! Imagine that. He actually holds one of the legislative seats himself, even though he's the supreme leader. And, of course, they have elections for supreme leader, too, but guess what? Over there, you only have two choices. And that is the supreme leader himself, Kim Jong-un, or death. Yeah. So basically over there, if you want to live, you're going to vote for him, even if you don't like him. You're going to vote for him anyways if you want to live. And if you don't vote for him, you're dead. Yeah, let's see. Here in the United States, you had all these options. The Trump electors, Clinton electors, Johnson electors, Stein electors, a whole list of others. to vote for. Sudden death was not on the list in this country. Think about that, people. Think about that, people. Okay? Think about all these options you had on the ballot compared to North Korea, where the supreme leader candidacy. Your only choices, your only options. Kim Jong-un or death. Seriously. What kind of society would you guys rather live in? Would you guys rather live in a society where there's only one name on the ballot and you vote for that name or you're dead? Or multiple options on the ballot? Again, I am not even saying who I voted for, but I'm just saying, hey, think about all this before you go out destroying property, looting, and all that other jazz. Okay, people? Think about this. And, and hey, who knows, if you guys still want to be, whiny brats, then, hey, maybe North Korea could be a good place for anybody that wants to be a whiny brat, especially with the fact that over there, you're not allowed to have your own opinion. You have to think and stink the same way as Kim Jong-un. And if you think any differently, then it's prison camp with hard labor or death. Yet here in this country, boom, all these ballot choices. And totally allowed to decide, exactly which did you want? Which electors did you want to vote for that would in turn vote for this or that specific candidate? And the fact that you're not going to die or go to prison because you didn't vote for Trump, you're not going to die and go to prison because you didn't vote for Clinton, you're not going to die or go to prison because you didn't vote for Johnson, you're not going to die and go to prison because you didn't vote for Stein, and you're not going to die and go to prison because you didn't vote for this or that other candidate that also happened to have been on the ballot. Think about it, people. Okay? It's like, which system would you rather live under? The American system or the North Korean system? And well, after you watch this, maybe you might decide, well, okay, maybe the results aren't so bad after all. Or maybe you might decide, I'd rather live in North Korea where I have to think and stink the same as Kim Jong-un. Yeah. Think about it, people. Think about it. Think long and hard about this. Okay? Thank you for watching. And God bless those who have common sense.